for a year in the mid-70s.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some modestness.
Ever been charged in this case, and the families of the victims still want answers.
A chef who has remained unnamed was cooking in a kitchen one day when something nightmarish happened. You see, he was cooking something in a deep fryer when he suddenly started twisting his head all demonically, and then threw his head into the deep fryer with no hesitation at all. His whole head was fried in oil and he then died. A video of this went viral and people thought he was possessed because why else would you turn your head like he did? And no sane person would just throw their head into a deep fryer. But the more believable reasoning for this incident was that he had some sort of mental illness, which was even noticed and pointed out by some of his coworkers. The video of it happening is very disturbing because 1 minute the chef is cooking food and doing his normal job, and then suddenly he starts twisting his neck awkwardly and then throws his head into the deep frying oil. It comes out of nowhere and it's like a jump scare. It's crazy how awful stuff like this happens and we will never know why. May this man rest in peace.
Warning, if you feel like you're being watched by the trees here in Woodlands National Park, you are. There are dangerous creatures here in these woods that look exactly like trees, but they are very dangerous and they are out to get you. If you hear loud rustling in the woods or see a tree that is suspiciously out of place, report it to a park ranger immediately. We are currently conducting an investigation. James, that tree wasn't there a minute ago. James! James, we gotta go. James, we gotta go. We gotta go. Warning, if you're walking alone on one of our trails and you feel like you're being watched, or you even hear sounds of trees moving or walking, please get out of the area immediately and contact one of our local park rangers. There are creatures that seem to look like trees and appear to look like trees, but are actually not. We're currently investigating the situation.
My friend's over there, look! Can you see him?
Alright, it's time to go south. Let's go.
Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. What I told you. Come here.
This is 38-year-old Udell Bruno who lives in Maryland, and if you ask me, I think this is a perfect description of someone who is unwell. Her boyfriend was 40-year-old Shimato Clark, and allegedly they had been having some issues. Upon further looking, Udell actually had some charges for domestic assault back in 2005. I'm not really sure what triggered in her, but I'm assuming her and Shimato had an argument. She then got into her car and hit Shimato with it. Unfortunately, he did succumb to his injuries and passed away. Being that this just happened on August 20th, like literally a week ago, she's still awaiting charges. What do you think that she should be charged?
Have you ever heard of the Mr. Cruel case? On August 22nd of 1987, Mr. Cruel broke into a family's home in Melbourne, Australia. He bound and gagged the parents, tied their 7-year-old son to his bed, and then repeatedly essayed their 11-year-old daughter for 2 hours. After the attack, he cut the phone lines to the home and left. When authorities finally arrived, the parents said that Mr. Cruel had approached them with a gun and a knife, and that's how he had overtaken them. The 11-year-old girl who had been essayed told police that Mr. Cruel had taken a break in between his assaults on her and seemed to be talking to somebody on the phone. During this phone conversation, he was very threatening and telling this other person that they needed to move their children or they would be next. But when police looked into phone records, no call had ever been made from the family's home. A full year would go by before Mr. Cruel would strike again. Just after Christmas in 1988, Mr. Cruel would break into the Wills family home. Once again, he cut the phone lines, bound and gagged the parents, and then went into their 4 daughters' room. Once he was inside the room that the 4 girls shared, he picked up Sharon. She was only 10 years old at the time. He picked up some clothing that was laying on the floor, and then he fled the house with Sharon. Eventually, Sharon's father was able to get out of his bindings, and he then realized that the phone lines to his house had also been cut, so he ran to his neighbor's house in order to call police. But just 18 hours later, Sharon would be found. She was found on a corner, and she was wearing nothing but a green trash bag. After Sharon had been reunited with her parents, she was interviewed by police. She told investigators that about 2 hours before she had been released, Mr. Cruel had bathed her thoroughly, clipped her toenails, her fingernails, brushed and flossed her teeth. He had basically just washed her clean of any forensic evidence he might have left. On July 3rd of 1990, Mr. Cruel would strike again. This time he targeted the Linus family. Nicola, who was 13 at the time, and Fiona, who was 15 at the time, had stayed home by themselves that evening. He woke the 2 girls up with his same MO of a gun and a knife. He then picked up 13-year-old Nicola and took her school uniform and then took off with her. He got in a rental car that he had parked in the family's driveway and then drove a couple of miles and then got into a different car. Just 2 days later, Nicola would be found. I am going to have to go to a part 2. Give me a couple of minutes to film it and it'll be up. It'll also be linked down in the comments, so go.
This is Ghost Rider 2.0, one of the worst cartel execution videos ever explained. Just like the Ghost Rider cartel video, this video is extremely hard to watch. The video is kinda short, lasting only 1 minute and 35 seconds, and as you play the video, you see a man with his hands tied behind his back, and he is sitting on the ground wearing jeans and a blue shirt. His head is bleeding and it's clear he got multiple injuries off camera. Multiple men can be heard in the background and one of them seems to be interrogating the victim. As the victim is being interrogated, another man pulls the rope around his wrist, making sure it's tight. And for whatever reason, they place a hat on the victim's head. The leading theory is that it represents some gang which maybe the victim is part of. They then smack the victim around for a couple seconds, then another man enters the shot carrying a log that was recently in a fire. The log is smoking and smoldering, but it's not on fire. You see the hot charcoal glowing at the end of the log. The man then gets the log and places the hot end against the victim's chest, which makes the victim let out a terrifying scream. The victim then rolls around on the ground trying to get away from the man, but he then places the hot log against his back, and again causing the victim to scream horribly. The video then jump cuts and it shows the man pinning the victim down with the log by pushing it into the back of his neck. This immobilizes the victim as he's forced to take the unbearable heat of the log. At this point, you see the victim's jeans have been stripped and you see the skin around his thighs peeling off. This is due to the severe burning done off camera. The victim continues rolling around, but when he turns over on his back, he is then burned with the log on the side of his neck. They stop burning the victim for a couple seconds and he then sits up. Then, another man pours a clear liquid over his head, completely soaking his hair, clothes, and face. The other man then places the red-hot log between his legs, burning his exposed genitals. And this is where things take a turn for the worst. The video then jump cuts again, and it shows the awful sight of the victim's head being set on fire as well as his genitals. The fire completely engulfed the victim's head, face, and shoulders. Though he is still alive rolling around on the ground, which is why people refer to this video as Ghost Rider 2.0. As the video continues, the men insult the victim as he's on fire. The video ends as the victim is still alive rolling around on the ground, but he has stopped screaming at this point. This could be due to his damaged vocal cords from the fire. There's no reports about the victim's fate, but it's safe to assume they ended up killing him. This video and case is absolutely horrific, and it's just sad and scary that stuff like this happens daily to people. Take this warning and never go searching for this video because it's absolutely horrible.
Things kidnappers look for: short people.
Let's talk about the Arcadia tapes. In 2001, in Arcadia County, Ohio, a teen named Calvin Dim went missing on his way home from school. This was really unusual at the time because Calvin was actually a pretty well-accomplished athlete and he was very tall for his age, so whoever did overtake him and abduct him was either a larger person or a group of people. So for like weeks, this investigation goes cold until a VHS tape is mysteriously found at the doorstep of his parents' house. The VHS was compiled of various different clips of unknown people in different masks who were just staring into the camera. But there is one clip in this video that had the words Cal, short for Calvin, edited into the VHS. This was pretty definitive evidence for the police that whoever made this video either knew where Calvin was or they had him in their possession. Police would end up finding this frame, which showed a person in a black tarp, presumably with their wrists and ankles tied. Investigators believe this could be Calvin, and what's even eerier is they think this was shot in the woods behind his house.
Hey guys, get ready with me to talk about my favorite case. This is the case of 25-year-old Jane Doe, who was pew-pewed by her boyfriend. First, we're gonna go in with some primer. But first, a word from our sponsor. Are you tired of cooking meals at home? Goodbye Fresh has got you covered, with hundreds of meals delivered right to your door.
This story will give you nightmares. Annie Andrews and her sister Jessica had recently lost their mother to cancer, and one night they performed a seance in their basement trying to contact their mother's spirit. And during the course of the seance, they began to hear knocking on the walls. They freaked out and thought maybe this house is haunted, or maybe we have indeed contacted Mother's spirit. In the weeks following the seance, not only did the knocking on the walls continue, but even stranger things began happening around the house. Furniture began to be unexplainably, mysteriously moved, and there were messages appearing on the walls that looked to be written in blood. Annie and Jessica and their father Brian were horrified. They couldn't make sense of this. They couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. They would leave the house and come back and their furniture would be completely rearranged. These messages in what looked like blood kept appearing, and the knocking on the walls were getting more and more intense. But y'all, this story is about to take a crazy turn. One night, Annie and Jessica's father Brian is horrifically awakened from a dead sleep by a figure standing in his room, holding a hatchet and covered in his deceased wife's makeup. Brian, of course, freaks out. The figure disappears. Police are immediately called to the scene, and what they find will shock you. But in order for the end of this story to make sense, I have to take you back a few months before Annie and Jessica's mother passed away. Annie had been set up on a blind date by a friend of a friend. She had talked to this boy, Danny LaPlante, on the phone a few times, although she had not met him in person yet. He described himself as tall, athletic, very handsome, and he couldn't wait to go on a date with Annie. But when Annie did finally meet up with Danny to go on a date, Danny didn't exactly look the way he had described. He was actually very disheveled and very homely, and made Annie uncomfortable. So Annie politely went through with the date, but after that date, stopped taking any of Danny's phone calls. And so when police were called to the Andrews home to investigate the horror show that was happening there, what they discovered was that Danny LaPlante had actually been living in the Andrews family home walls. He had moved in, had been living there for weeks, and had even cut holes in the walls to spy on Annie. He would move things when the family wasn't home. He would write messages in ketchup on the walls to scare them to death. Danny LaPlante was arrested and taken to a juvenile facility for a short time, and after he was released, he was later arrested for murdering an entire family. Guys, I'm on my way to 1 million followers. Please hit that follow button, and if you want to hear more stories like this, please hit the like button and leave me a comment so I know you're here. Bye.
This man did the most ungodly act on Easter. Hi, my name is Ethan, and here's everything you need to know in under 1 minute. 42-year-old Steven Seppel had a wife named Cheryl and 4 adopted children. A little backstory: the Seppels were devout Catholics and painted themselves to be the picture-perfect American family. The morning of March 23, 2008, they went to church like normal as it was Easter. However, that evening, something in Steven snapped. Randomly, he picked up the baseball bat in his closet and beat his wife and 4 adopted children to death. It wasn't until the next morning that he called 911 and told them to come to his home, and as soon as he ended the call, he left. He then drove his car into a concrete barrier which unalived him instantly. Several years later, it is still unknown what caused him to do such a horrific act.
Be careful what you put in your body. In 2014, a couple returned to their home to find it trashed in baffling ways. There was lotion all over the door handles, all of their shoes had had their soles ripped off of them, and someone had dumped an entire can of paint all over the toilet. Despite the obvious break-in, the police come and can't find any evidence of theft, so they leave thinking the couple's not in danger anymore. That night, the couple hears scratching underneath their bed and what sounds like a crying animal. Not wanting to find out what it was, they leave and call the cops, who come right back and start investigating the house, and they make a startling discovery in their bedroom. Wedged underneath the couple's bed was this 90-pound tiny little woman carrying a huge butcher's knife and a hypodermic needle. As they're taking this crazy lady away in handcuffs, one of the officers comes over to the couple and is like, "So she was high on meth, and for at least 2 hours, she had been burrowing a hole in the underside of your mattress with that knife to get to you."
This is by far one of the worst cases in human history, and this is a massive trigger warning. This is the murder of Christine Siluan. She was from the Philippines and was a volunteer in church, and she used the church every day from 4 to 6 p.m. On the day of her murder, she went to church as per her schedule, but she didn't come home after that. Her parents then started to worry, and they began searching for her with their neighbors. And what they found was absolutely horrid. They found her body in a farm where half her skull was sliced like a piece of pizza, and her face was literally skinned down to her skull. Also, her brain was completely destroyed by acid. The police then started investigating, and they checked the cameras and found out that she was with a guy. The people started protesting about this case, and the case was given to special officers. They had a lot of pressure on this. A week before this happened, Christine broke up with her boyfriend, so the police took him into custody. And he was proving he was home all day when she was murdered, but officers were completely tired of this case, and they then sentenced him as the murderer. But after a few months, a thief was caught in a store where he confessed he murdered and raped Christine. He said he started talking to her on Facebook with a fake account and was using fake photos of another guy who was pretty good looking. Christine fell for the guy, and she assumed that he was about 20 years old, and they started texting daily. One day, they both decided to meet up at 6 p.m. near the church she went to. But upon arriving, Christine noticed that this was not the guy she was talking to, and this guy was around 40-ish years old. She then refused to talk to him and tried to go back, but he held her hands extremely forcefully and then took her far away from town and raped her repeatedly. He then put iron rods inside her personal organs and then cut her face in half and then skinned her whole head down to the skull. And to make it even worse, he put acid inside of her head. The autopsy also revealed that her tongue, trachea, esophagus, parts of her neck, and right ear were missing. The self-proclaimed killer of this case, named Renato Lanas, said that he used barber-type scissors and stabbed her 30 times on different parts of her body and skinned her face. Christine Siluan was only 16 years old, and this case is extremely haunting. There's a picture of her body in the field they found her on, but Google did a really good job of not showing it and hiding it. So even if you do go looking for the picture, I don't think you're going to find it. This is one of those cases that after you get done reading about it, you just feel some sort of uneasiness. I feel so bad for Christine's family, and I can't imagine finding my daughter in this state. May Christine Siluan rest in peace.